Hello everyone, welcome back to the Ultimate Fighting Casuals. So a really interesting weekend of fights actually.
Yeah.
Some went the way we thought, some didn't at all. Lots to break down here, lots to look at. We're going to try and work our way through it as well. Cool, right. Do you want to introduce it with the thing about city kickboxing? Nice.
So we touched on it last week.
Yeah, just go straight into
it. Yeah.
Not a very good night for the city kickboxing boys in general.
So not a very good night for the city kickboxing boys in general, starting with an early shout that we both had. Carlos Ulberg did well early, but ultimately lost the fight, getting knocked out in the second round. Kai Kara France in real danger in the first round on the floor, but he did come back and win the fight, knocking the guy out.
I mean, he was literally being dominated the entire fight, mate. I mean, it was a really iffy one. I thought he was going to get choked out multiple times.
Yeah.
There was an insane armbar almost locked in there that he managed to roll out. So his defence was actually really good, in all honesty. Pretty impressive. When he actually did manage to get up, you called it, Moz, saying, imagine if he knocks him out. Literally within 15 seconds, he's going at him and absolutely knocks him out. Absolutely folds him with a deck chair. And I forgot an interesting point that we didn't talk about before this, like the Herb Dean what sort of goes on there. So Kara France runs back over. We managed to pause it, like frame by frame almost as we were watching it, and you can see the corner does point to Kara France and tends to go back over. Some corners are fucking some fighters over here in this card.
Well, so I don't think that the blame is actually on the corner for this one. I think it's in Herb Dean's communication in stopping the fight. So when he lands the blow and the guy's folded like a deck chair, absolutely unconscious, Herb Dean does get in between the fighters, moves Kara France away and almost catches and puts the guy who was fighting in a position of safety. He doesn't wave the fight though. At no point does he stand over and wave the fight like we're used to seeing, and at that point the fighter stops when the fight is waved, and at that point it hadn't been. Herb Dean has had some very questionable stoppages. There was a female fight where it kind of went on a little bit too long. She got dropped, got back up and got dropped again, and then it was waved. And I know with the Usman Burns stoppage, it was a little bit strange with him over the top.
So there's some weird controversial stuff. I just think it ultimately comes down to just a bit of weird communication. I'm glad at the end, ultimately, just to see Kara France go over and hug the guy and just sort of say, look, we're all cool. 100%. And ultimately, just a massive win for Kara France.
Absolutely.
And good for the city kickboxing boys, because at this point they're 1-1, and we all sort of know where this is going, don't we? Mm-hmm. So next fight we're going to look at is Song Yadong versus Kyler Phillips. Well, I was very impressed by Phillips here. I didn't watch either of them too much coming into this. In the first round, Song Yadong, very cocky, very confident, sort of doing this at him. Was sort of took a lot of shots. There was a head kick, a couple of punches in there. He really took it well. Ultimately, though, he sort of looked like he couldn't keep up that intensity throughout the fight. And for me, Phillips ultimately dominated probably the first 2 rounds, won them, and then going into the third, got some good takedowns in, and I was pretty impressed. What about you?
I agree. I think Phillips looked really quick and dynamic. Some spinning kicks to the body and question marks kicked to the head that landed clean in the first. And the takedowns from him as well. Some really clean power doubles and controlling Song Yadong well to ultimately win the fight. Once he realised he wasn't going to knock him out. So well done to him, and looks really dangerous coming up the bantamweight division. So the next fight on the card was Dominic Cruz, Casey Kenny. Really good performance from Cruz. Looked a level above and getting his first win in the column since 2016, wasn't it?
Yeah, 2016. I mean, that's 5 years just to the number of like how long he's gone without winning. That is massive for a fighter like him, especially one who we thought maybe could be in contention to beat Cejudo last year. Ultimately, we saw how that went. But ultimately, the 6 months in the gym, as you said, paid massive dividends to him. He looked like he was just a level above Casey Kenny here, just that world-class sort of level, sort of up there, definitely. I mean, in that fight alone, not to compare him to world-class talent, but in that fight, he looked really good. I do feel for Casey Kenny, though. I thought he actually looked all right. I feel for him, he just ultimately came up against a better fighter on their day, and he's not as good as Cruz. Looked good with potential, but not too much to say on Kenny. I think Cruz looked really good. Yeah,
I think I was actually really impressed by Kenny. I think his diversity in not getting taken down, his strength in popping back up in the grappling exchanges, and not giving up on himself, because he was embarrassed a couple of times. There were a few times where he swang for Dominic and he just wasn't there and was getting popped by a jab or leg kick or straight. And it's very difficult fighting Cruz. He did a good job and not getting embarrassed or knocked out. So fair play to him. But for Cruz, looked really good. And I'd like to see him go further in the division.
So this is actually the only fight on the Aqua where me and Moz saw difference. He had Rakic, I had Santos. In all honesty, after the fight, it was boring. It could have not really gone either way. I don't think Santos was good. I think Rakic was probably better. But honestly, really boring. Neither of them looked dangerous. Both were a little bit scared. Santos 4-fight losing streak. Don't have much to say on this whatsoever, mate. What about you?
No, I haven't got much to comment on. I think Rakic sort of did enough to get the decision, but we were expecting so much more. Hopefully we can see some good fights for the 205 division going forward. But we'll
ultimately
see.
Disappointing.
Yeah. So just before we get into the title fights, it was Islam Makhachev versus Drew Dober. I thought Dober put up good defence, and in the first round he did hit him with a couple of shots that made him question his approach a little bit, but ultimately I thought he'd get it done a bit quicker, Makhachev, but he got it done in the third in real dominant fashion.
Yeah, I mean, Khabib sort of coached him through there. You could have, I wouldn't disrespect Dober and say it was a bit of a training session, but I feel like ultimately Makhachev was always dominating that fight, and it was always sort of going to win it. Exactly, yeah. And the beginning of every round was Dober's real chance to keep it on the feet, and it was 5 seconds slammed to the floor. Fantastic trips. Ultimately, Khabib 2.0 and the way he fought, and I was very impressed, to be honest. But just not my style of fight, not my sort of stuff I sort of follow and get excited by. So it was good to watch, but ultimately doesn't mean too much for me. I would like to see him fight Ferguson, as we were talking about who he called out, but that's all in Makhachev for me.
100%. With Makhachev, as you say, there are some interesting fights in the future, and it's more about can people solve the puzzle of this style of fighting, of the overwhelming ground game. Obviously, Makhachev lost his first fight, but that was more holes in stand-up as opposed to a flaw in his ground game. So I think there are some interesting fights for him. RDA as well, who was booked to fight originally. So we'll see where he ends up. So the first title fight of the night was for the bantamweight strap with Petr Yan versus Aljamain Sterling.
One more round there. Oh, what's that meant? Oh, go on. There he's smoking at him.
Early rounds, Aljamain was starting to work the champion a bit and ask those questions, make him think. But Yan shelled up really well, and Aljo started to gas quite badly. Yan started to take over the fight from my perspective. But yeah, what did you think?
I mean, I just thought Yan's boxing was a different level. I thought the covering up was fantastic, the defence. A lot of Sterling shots weren't given as much damage as maybe they were coming across through the television sort of thing. I feel like Yan was very covered up, and the jab was fantastic. I feel like ultimately the trips are really good. He just looked like more of a champion as well. I did say that sort of in the clips that we recorded when we were reacting to it. I feel like that Yan looked like more of a champion here. Unfortunately, I feel like Sterling gassed a little bit early. I feel like he sort of was very excited, overwhelmed by it a little bit, and ultimately like Yan was winning that fight for me. I had him at about 3-1 going into or 2-1 going into the fourth. Well, I can't remember what round it was that ultimately ended him, but I think I had him got at least up by 2 rounds, and ultimately I think he was going on to win the fight. What about you? Yeah,
no, it was ended in the fourth, but he was ultimately up by 2 rounds. I think Aljo managed to take the second round or the first round. It was quite close in between those two, so give one of them to him. But ultimately, Yan did so well in not taking that damage and actually just sort of dropping him in the first round and not being put to the floor and playing Aljo's game. So well done.
Absolutely. But unfortunately, it didn't end up actually going his way at all because of a really, really stupid illegal knee. It was it was awful. We watched it back multiple times. It's horrific every time you watch it back.
Look at him just pressing on the head here. Look.
You can't. What? He's down. He had a knee on the floor. He might get disqualified for that.
He told him before that, he said down.
He said you cannot do that. He could get disqualified for that. Awfully illegal.
He's down and he threw it anyway, so it's an intentional foul. Right. That's what he just said.
And that would be
mate. No, he finished the fight with that. That finished the fight.
Crazy.
Disqualification.
You
mean that?
Look at him. Don't have that conversation until he's on his feet. It's done.
There it is.
That's it. Yeah. So what does that mean? Sterling wins?
Yes, so we will wait to make it official, but it looks as though Petr Yan will be disqualified and Aljamain Sterling will be the undisputed UFC bantamweight champion.
That's so crazy, bro. If you had 1% of doubt in your mind that you thought Sterling was maybe playing it a little bit for the belt, it is not true. There is no way I believe that now after rewatching that. It was really ridiculous, so stupid by the corner to call it, or so stupid by Yan to do it. No excuses. Everyone in that stadium should know better, no matter how you look at it. Do you know what I mean? That's just absolutely ridiculous to even do it.
It's a total fight at that point.
Exactly, mate. Absolutely. And I feel for Sterling a little bit, as we've said before. He said the right things. That's not the way he wanted to win it. Of course it isn't. No. However, what more must he do? That is the rules. That is the game we are playing here. I ultimately think another fight might happen. Whatever. At the moment, Sterling's the winner. I feel sorry for Yan and Sterling in a way because of just the situation isn't great. But it is what it is, mate.
It very much is one of those it is what it is situations. The blame ultimately falls on Peter Yan for me. I said it after the fight. I don't know if it will in the clips.
Yeah, we'll cut it in, yeah.
But basically, it's the same for me as if he zigged when he should have zagged and got caught by a big shot and knocked out cold when he was winning the fight. That mistake is unforgivable, and he needed him downed in the fight earlier, and the referee acknowledged it, and it was given back to him. So ultimately, I think that he knows he shouldn't be doing that, and you can say, aggression, testosterone, the moment got the better of him, but ultimately you're a champion on the biggest stage, multiple millions of people watching that, and it's unacceptable for the sport. He's paid the price. He won't earn anywhere near as much money in the rematch, so we'll see how Aljo does, and it's now on Yan to go and get his belt back, and we'll see how he does.
So when I was looking back through the editing, I realised I sort of laughed a little bit last week when I was talking about Nunes in the fight. That wasn't in a disrespectful way. I think after that fight you can sort of see maybe what I was giggling at.
Look at this. She's got it.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, she's got it.
That's a wrap.
Nunes is an undisputed GOAT. There's nothing more to say.
There's no competition.
No, there's nothing, mate. There's nothing there. Phenomenal from her. No, I don't really know what to say. Everyone saw it. What more do you want? She's the GOAT of all GOATs in her division, in her world, whatever.
100%. And we touched on it just speaking before we started filming. It's so hard to get to that level.
Yeah.
She is almost, at skill set wise, as far ahead as Khabib. She's so sound on the ground. On the feet, she cracks like nobody else, and there isn't any other 145. There isn't a division, right? There are no rankings. Yeah. Megan Anderson walks in there unranked in a championship fight. No, this division is pointless, and we're just going to see girls keep getting run over. UFC, go and buy out some talent from some other organisations and build a division that is actually worth watching, or scrap the belt, because this is boring.
Okay, so now to touch on the main event of the night, Izzy versus Yan. I mean,
49-46, 49-45, and 49-45 for the winner, and still
Wow! 49-45.
UFC.
He got cunted.
This was meant to be the most exciting fight of the year so far for me. I was so looking up for this, and you as well, and millions of other people. Sorry, don't get me wrong, but I was just such an Izzy fanboy. I'm so hyped behind him. I've put everything on him. All my chips are pushed towards him. And ultimately, I was super disappointed. Very underwhelming performance. Overall, I thought Yan was very impressive. I just want to give some dividends towards Yan as well. Absolutely. Because I feel like he was a little bit disrespected towards this before this, and also during the fight. And we'll talk on that and stuff. But I feel like Yan did really well here. He's the deserving champion. I mean, underwhelmed by Izzy, like I said. What do you think, mate?
Absolutely, I'd agree. It was a lacklustre performance from Adesanya. And I have to hold my hands up and say that I completely disrespected Yan and put too much on Izzy. I didn't respect how much of a factor weight has. And we'll talk about it more because we do want to go into this more in depth because there are a lot of talking points for Adesanya.
Yes, we're going to bring out a whole video on this Adesanya Yan card because obviously, as Mo said, there's lots of different points in the round to talk about.
Absolutely. I think looking back on it though, just to touch on it quickly, he'll see holes that he could have exploited. And it wasn't a typical Adesanya performance. He did well, he wasn't in danger, he hasn't been knocked out. And ultimately, he's going to go back down to 185. And what do you want to see next for him?
Yeah, I mean, I think I know the fight exactly what I want to see. So I want to see him fight Darren Till. Izzy called out, I mean, there's loads of reasons why I want to see this, right? But Izzy called him out before he even fought Yan, before he'd even won this and had the two belts and would have had all those other options and challenges. He said something about Till. Till's got a fight in like 3 or 4 weeks versus Vittori. If he can win that, we're maybe looking at a summer, come to the O2. The UK coronavirus vaccination program is looking quite good right now. You never know. We should have all restrictions lifted by then. You don't know how it could shape up. These are massive factors in the world right now that 100%. will play a massive factor. In America, you aren't getting big stadiums anytime soon.
No.
You know what I mean? This could be a big thing, and I think that's a good comeback fight for Izzy. Not that he needs it, but look, he's faced killers. He's been in wars, regardless of how you did it. Training for a Costa fight, regardless, would have taken that just as seriously as Romero, as anyone else. So I feel like he now just needs not a break, but just a fight where he can come down a bit of a level, because that's what Till is there, and I think that'd be a bit interesting because Till has a point to prove, and it'll be great, for me as an English fan, for you as well. I know you both love Till. Round it back to Adesanya. Adesanya here. it's not like he's had an insanely devastating loss, right? I ultimately think the fight was a little bit boring.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that, as Mo said, the weight was a massive factor. Yan on top of him was pushing him down. He needs to work on his takedown defense. It completely wasn't there. And these are holes where someone like Attila could exploit. You genuinely never know. Yeah. This is where, like, these fighters aren't easy. This opens up quite an avenue for Adesanya now. As I said, but there's a big breakdown, I think, on this fight that we want to actually do. But to touch on it, underwhelming, and I think there's a lot of things he needs to go away and work on before he looks at another fight right now.
I agree. A lot of question marks asked for Adesanya. Let's see if he can answer.
Okay, so thank you for watching this episode of the Ultimate Fighting Casuals. Ultimately, looking back over the card, some fights went the way we thought, some ultimately didn't. But the Adesanya fight is definitely one we're going to be breaking down and talking about a lot more, because there's loads of things we want to talk about with that, and we thought it would be worth its own videos. That's coming near at the end of the week. We've also got Leon Edwards fighting this weekend.
Yes,
really exciting, so we'll touch on that for sure. Definitely videos to come, loads and loads of content to come over March. Be sure to stick around. Anything from you at all, Moz?
Follow the Instagram.
Absolutely. Get down below. It's down there. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Thank you for all the support, and we'll see you next time.